This video is supported in part by Tommy and the Order of Cosmic Champions. If you enjoy the never-ending story and Masters of the Universe, this new novel coming fall 2022 is right up your alley.
The Atari Legacy cabinet from Arcade1Up came with 12 really great games, and you probably heard of 11 of them. But there's a 12th game on there called Akka Arrh, and if you never heard of that game, it's not that surprising because Atari never released it. Hi, my name is Mo. Thanks for watching GenXGrownUp. Now, back in 1982, Mike Haley and Dave Ralston created a game that was supposed to be called Target Outpost, I think, but it's really better known as Akka Arrh. Now, the name Akka Arrh is kind of a play on, also known as Another Ralston-Haley Production, and I just got a feeling that was just a working title. Looking back to their years working on pinball machines, they initially tried to create a game that incorporated some of the mechanics of pinball, but it really evolved into more of a shooter game. I listened to an interview that Mike Haley gave, and he talked about creating Akka Arrh. He was trying to create a game that had two different mechanics that the player would experience instead of the single playstyle that you got from games like Space Invaders and Pac-Man. The game passed through whatever hoops it had to, and Atari approved for them to create 5 cabinets for field testing. Now, something you have to remember is that back in the early days of arcade machines, the boards that ran the game, the cabinets, the artwork, the control surfaces, all of it had to be created pretty much from scratch for every new machine. It was a huge investment for a company to mass produce and distribute these arcade machines. So they would essentially create a few cabinets, throw them out into the wild, and see how they did. In the first week of the trial in an arcade in Florida, Akka Arrh made $30. To put that in perspective, an arcade machine that is performing okay would generate about $200 a week, and a top game could make double that. So, the game was considered a flop for being too difficult to play. Now, Mike Haley and Dave Ralston continued to have careers at Atari, with Mike Haley creating hits like Star Wars and Dave Ralston being the lead designer for Paperboy. I think this game might have remained being only known to super collectors and arcade historians because the ROMs were not available to be played on emulators like MAME. But that changed when mysteriously a copy of the ROM appeared on torrent and ROM sites on April 15th, 2019. Nobody is sure where the ROMs came from. The rumor at the time was that a technician was doing maintenance on somebody's private collection of arcade games, and they had one of the 3 known Akka Arrh cabinets and somehow illegally copied the ROM. From what I'm able to discover, most people don't believe this, as copying a ROM isn't like copying a file today. It actually takes some work. Alright, so enough of all this history stuff. Let's get into the important piece of what's it like to play the game. In Akka Arrh, you are defending your base, which is at the center of the screen, from waves of enemies that come in from every direction. In the first screen, you can destroy incoming ships by using the trackball to target one of the zones that make up concentric rings around your base. When you shoot into one of these sections, every ship that's within the zone gets destroyed. You get points for destroying a ship with a multiplier depending on where in the ring you were able to destroy them. The game gets interesting when enemy ships make it to the center area. Then you have to hit the zoom button, and you're now trying to hit individual ships using your cannon. You have shields that they have to shoot through before they can kill you, and eventually ships you don't destroy leave the center, and you have to hit the zoom button again to try to hit them before they leave the screen. If this sounds a bit frantic, it's because it is. When you're playing in the zoomed out screen, you do destroy all the ships that are in the zone you attack, but your shots take time to get there, so you have to account for that when you're timing your shots. The ships move in all directions, and they get faster and move more randomly as you progress levels. When you are playing in the zoomed in screen, you do have a rapid fire, but it's really hard to hit them. At first I thought that you had to have the target right over the ships to hit them, but you don't. But since the shots only go as far as your cursor, trying to move along the edge of the screen is too slow to hit most of the enemies. Plus, some enemies drop these little objects that actually block your shots. So I totally know why they said this game was probably too difficult for people back then. Maybe my 12-year-old self would be able to handle the 2 different gameplays, but it was just too much for me to handle today. I have a hard time coming up with what I think is a fair rating for this game. 40 years ago, maybe I would have loved this game, but I can tell you right now, it's just too frantic for me. It kind of reminds me of what it was like to play Defender the first time. It's just too much going on for me to handle. So for me right now, I would probably give this thing 2 tokens. I know, not completely fair, But, for the gameplay and the complexity, it just doesn't seem like something I would have really loved back then, and honestly, I really don't see me playing it too much now. Thanks for watching. Hey, if you want to see my full review of the Atari Legacy cabinet, you could click right now and, see what I thought of it. Thanks for watching so much, and take care.